Okay, so I need two hands to do this, so got my phone set up there. So I have this ground down on both sides, and what I've done is to check my thickness is I take my calipers here and I check it. We're at 643. Rotate a little bit, get a good bite on it. 645. 644, and I just go around there. So with just the belt sander, I've got within 2 thousandths. And some of the techniques I use, I just took the belt sander and just rotated it around, went around 10 or 15, then come back the other way, then rotated the piece, did the same thing. Also used the chamfer on the inside and outside as a guide. The more chamfer, the less it's taken off. The less chamfer, the more it's taken off, and then just hit those target areas. So now that I've roughed this in, I'm going to come back and put it back in the vise and use my file to go around and file it, and I can see where the file is hitting, and I knock out some of the highs and lows and refine a little bit better and get a smoother finish. After I'm finished with that, I'll have to clean it very thoroughly because I don't want any of this dust down into my engine. So I've been getting the Speedmaster rocker arms to fit, going through all the shims and everything to go on there. Everything was turning out pretty good, and then I noticed there was a little bit of binding that I didn't like, and what I found out was the rocker arm was actually hitting the top of the valve and the valve spring retainer. So I was working on clearance in them, and I got one done, and I noticed there's still a little bit of binding. So I noticed my push rods, they're sitting towards the bottom of the hole. So I took one out and did the sharpening mark on it, and I noticed that, get a view of that right there. I got a sharpening mark on there, and it's actually hitting at the top where it cleaned off all the sharpiness. So that tells me that these heads that I have here aren't clearance for a 1/6 ratio rocker arm. So I'm going to go back with my my Proform rocker arms that I had on the engine before, just a 1/5 ratio roller rocker adjustable. I'm just going to go back with these because that setup worked. What I could do is actually clearance the heads for the push rods, but given I already have the engine assembled, I don't want to go in there and start grinding on the heads right now. So that's something to note that I can use on a new engine, just to do a good mock-up using those rocker arms and a different set of heads, and just mark where I need to clearance the push rods at. Then I can reuse those for another build. So I'm working on getting the Proform roller rockers on here. I've already cleaned up this side of the engine, and I have these set to 0 lash right now. I'm just coming through and setting everything to 0 lash the way it is, and once I get both sides on like that, I'll rotate 90, set to 0 lash, and continue that every 90 degrees for one rotation, then come back and do them a half a turn and lock them down, and they'll be done. So one of the things I'm doing, since I had these laying around and they were oily, collect a little bit of dirt, and actually found a spider on one of them. I'm just coming through and cleaning them up. And what I've done is I've dunked them in gas, just let them soak in a little bucket, and then coming back over to my little clean station. I'll blow them off outside, blow all the gas off, and then I come through and I use my little bucket of oil, dunk the rocker in it, and just rotate all the rollers, make sure oil is through all the rollers on both ends of it, both sides of it, then slap them on the rod, and making sure that I assemble it with the oil holes in the correct orientation. So it's face down and towards the top half of the engine. If you can see that, they're offset in there. So I'm wanting them pointed more like that and not like that. Once I get all that done, I'll get that locked in and attempt to turn off the camera with oily hands now. Alright, I got the rocker arms on, and I got them torqued down and adjusted. So I'm ready to start sealing up this engine now. What I'm going to go with is the for the valve cover gaskets, the Moroso molded rubber with the steel insert. I think that's should be pretty standard for anything that you're going to keep on any engine. So they make that for all the makes. So I'm also going to go with the Phil-Pro intake manifold gaskets and use the cork here. I know that a lot of people, and I've done this before, is come in here and just use a silicone bead, and it includes the video I linked on one of the other sessions about how to do that, and they use that. I've done that before, and I really don't like it. I did it, and I had a water jacket leak back here on the back over here. I didn't get it sealed up real good, so I got to pull the whole intake manifold off, and that silicone, wherever it sticks good. I like to never got that intake manifold off. So I'm just not a fan of the RTV, but use whatever technique you can on these things. One of the other things that I've learned to do, and I'm not doing on this engine, is go with the Magnum intake manifold set. And what that has is, in here, it has the one-piece molded rubber gasket that fits on the front and on the back over there, so you don't have to worry about the cork or the RTV in it down. Of course, you still got to RTV any corners like here with using those, but I've used that with good results, and I even used the intake gaskets as well. And what I did over the heat riser, I just went through with a punch set and punched that out on the 360 I built and used those on. That way I have my heat crossover in there. And then I had to go through and elongate the bolt holes slightly on that gasket. Other than that, it fit right on there. So no issues, and that truck runs great. So that's a couple ways to get around siliconing this, or using the cork. There is the molded rubber as well. Unfortunately, I haven't found any place that sells just those molded rubber gaskets. Anyone watching that, if you're selling that stuff, please make that available. That's just awesome stuff there. Alright, I'm about to put the intake manifold on this 360. So, what I've done that I didn't video is these cork gaskets that I'm using, they're actually just a little bit long. So when it sits in there, since they're too long, it kind of buckles up a little bit. So I've come in and trimmed these to fit on both ends. So what I'm about to do now is do my silicone in the edges and on the water jackets, and get these in, and then put the intake manifold gaskets on, and then drop the intake manifold on. Alright. Swat mosquitoes while I'm doing this. I'm just going to do a little bead right in the corner here. There's a little bead in the corner on each of the four corners. And I use this toothpick to kind of mash it down in there, so I know I get a good seal down in there. I don't have the air bubbles or anything. The other thing that I didn't mention is I actually went in and wiped down all my surfaces, so that's how much grit and dirt I got off there, especially when I'm going to silicone here, because it needs to bond real good. Okay, so I've got this one set into place. I'll come back and fill that little gap in there, more silicone. I'm just kind of using a toothpick to kind of tap it in there, make sure it fills that gap up. take a little bit of this and go around this water jacket. This don't need to be real thick, but it does need to be on there. Alright, almost done with this. And I'll pick up after I do that other one and get the actual intake manifold gaskets on, and show dropping the intake manifold on, putting some bolts in.